You're posting every single day, sharing your best tips, pouring your heart out in your captions, but your inbox is still a ghost town. And after a while, you start questioning whether it's your content or whether it's you. I mean, it feels like you're shouting into a void where the only one listening is your mom, right? You're doing the work, but the work isn't doing anything for your bank account. But there is a way to create content that turns strangers into high-paying clients without needing a massive following or a complex, viral strategy. I've seen hundreds of heart-led coaches move from background noise to the only choice by making specific shifts in how they communicate. Comes down to six distinct reasons your content is stalling out. And the third one is the exact reason why even your most valuable posts are being ignored. The first reason your content isn't converting is because you used an encyclopedia strategy to create it, right? You think that if you just teach enough, people will eventually realize how smart you are and hire you. You share 3 tips for better sleep or the 5 steps to manifesting your dream life, right? You're giving away the how-to for free because you want to prove your value. You want to show that you have the certification and the knowledge to back up your price tag. This doesn't work because information is a commodity. Anyone can get a how-to guide from a 5-second search, right? Or a quick AI prompt. So when you provide just the how, you're making your audience feel like they've already done the work just by reading your post. They get that tiny hit of dopamine, feel satisfied for a moment, and then scroll right on past. You accidentally become a free resource instead of an essential mentor. Like, have you ever noticed how you'll save a post, agree with it completely, and then do absolutely nothing with it? Your audience does the same thing. What you do instead is shifting from teaching how to teaching why it matters. You need to sell the problem before you can sell the solution. And your content should bridge the gap between, where your clients are to where they want to be by highlighting the cost of staying still. Look at what your client is doing right now that isn't working. If you're a health coach, instead of 3 recipes for energy post, write a post titled, Why Your Morning Coffee is Actually the Reason You're Crashing at 2 p.m. Right? Explain the mechanism of the crash. Show them that you understand their specific struggle better than they do. When you describe their problem more clearly than they can, they automatically trust that you have the solution. Now, the second reason your content isn't working is that you're falling into the polished professional trap. You look at what the big industry leaders are doing, you see their high-end branding, their perfectly curated fields, and their professional sounding language, and you try to mirror all of that. You want to sound like an expert, so you use the vocabulary of an expert. But when you use all that industry jargon, you end up creating a barrier between you and the person that you want to help. It feels clinical to them. So it may feel safe to you, but safe content doesn't sign clients. And when your content sounds like a brochure, people consume it like a brochure, right? They may agree with it, but they don't really feel connected to the person behind it. In fact, think of the last brochure you read. You probably don't remember it. And that's the problem. So instead, use living room language. Like, speak to your client the way they speak to their best friend at 11 o'clock at night, when they're so exhausted, they're finally being honest about how much they're struggling. Like, you want to use the messy, unpolished, specific words that actually describe their reality. So to do this, go through your last 5 posts and highlight every coachy word, any jargon that's there, and delete them. Replace them with sensory details. So instead of, I help you find abundance, try, I help you stop panicking every time you open your banking app. Instead of start your transformation, try, wake up without that heavy pit of dread in your stomach. And the more it sounds like a real conversation, the more they'll feel like you're speaking directly to them. And the third reason is the one I mentioned at the top of the video, the invisible expert mistake. So I recently worked with a coach whose content was getting engagement, right? People were commenting, people were liking, but nobody was booking. When I looked at her content, the problem wasn't the content. The problem was that nowhere did she actually tell people how to work with her. Like, she figured people would just automatically go to her profile to learn more. But it's important to direct them to your profile if that is the next action that you want them to take. It's all about providing a clear bridge to the next step. You think that if the content's good enough, people will just know how to work with you, right? Or you're afraid of looking salesy, so you tuck your offer kind of away at the bottom of a long caption, or you just never mention it at all. You assume people will, like I said, click the link in your bio if they're interested. But the truth is they won't. People are busy and distracted. Even if they love your post, they need to be led. If you don't tell them exactly what the next step is, they'll take that inspiration you just gave them and go spend their money somewhere else. So by not being clear about how to hire you, you're actually doing your audience a disservice because you're leaving them stuck in the problem that you just highlighted. So instead, normalize the invitation. View your call to action as the final piece of the value that you're providing. If you have identified a path for them, it's your responsibility to show them where the door is. So at the end of every piece of content, give them one specific action, not three, one. If you're talking about burnout, say, if you're ready to reclaim 10 hours of your week, DM me the word focus. It needs to be that simple. Don't ask them to check out the site or see all my links. Give them one clear path to the relief that they're seeking. Now, if you're listening to this and realizing that you've been creating content without a clear path for people to work with you, that's exactly the kind of thing we help coaches identify. So if you'd like help with that, click the link in the bio and book a clarity call with my team. Now, the fourth reason is that you're building content from the outside in, right? You're looking at trending audios, checking what your competitors are posting. You're trying to basically hack the latest algorithm. You're choosing topics because you think they're popular, even if they don't actually excite you, right? You're trying to fit your wisdom into like that 7-second reel format because a guru told you that that's the only way to get views. And this fails because it creates a massive energetic leak. Right? Your audience can feel when you're performing a strategy instead of sharing a conviction that you hold dearly. Like when you force yourself into a content style that doesn't fit your natural design, you show up as a diluted version of yourself. For example, if you're a human design projector and you're trying to churn out that high energy daily hype content, you will look exhausted. And people don't buy from exhausted mentors, right? They buy from people who embody the result they want. So what to do instead is create from the inside out using your natural energy type. Your content should be an overflow of your unique perspective, not a response to what the market wants. Like when you lean into your natural way of communicating, the work of content creation actually gives you energy instead of taking it away. So one way to do this is to look at your human design and your authority in particular. So if you have an emotional authority, stop trying to post on the fly. Give yourself permission to wait for the clarity that comes from the emotional wave. And then share from that grounded space. Now, if you're a generator, pay attention to what topics kind of make your gut say yes, right? If you're bored writing the post, they're going to be bored reading it. So stop following that whole, daily posting rule if it makes you feel like a robot. 3 magnetic aligned posts are worth more than 30 filler posts. And one of the things I see all the time is coaches creating content they secretly don't even want to create, right? They sit down to write and immediately feel resistance. They assume they're being lazy. But most of the time they're not being lazy. They're trying to communicate in a way that doesn't fit them. All right? Now the fifth reason is what I call the narrow door problem. So you're trying to speak to everyone because you're afraid of losing out on potential clients, right? So you're keeping your messaging broad so you don't alienate anyone. You say you help ambitious women or uh, entrepreneurs, people who want more. That's casting too wide of a net. The market these days is too crowded for broad messaging like that. When you try to speak to everyone, you end up speaking to no one. So your dream client doesn't see themselves in your words because your words are too thin. They're looking for a specialist who understands their specific flavor of pain. So broad messaging may create likes, but specific messaging is what creates leads. You need to pick one person in one specific scenario and speak only to them for a while. You want the people who aren't a fit to scroll past as fast as possible so that the person who is a fit feels like you have a camera in their living room, right? You know exactly what's going on in their lives. So describe a specific moment in time. So instead of like, I help people with career stress, try, I help the VP who's staring at her laptop at 8 p.m. on a Friday night, wondering why she works so hard to feel this miserable, right? When you describe that Friday night at 8 p.m., every VP who is currently doing that will stop scrolling. They will feel that immediate thud of recognition, right? That recognition is what built the trust required to book a call. And then the final reason your content isn't landing is what I call the missing conviction. You're sharing facts and tips, but you aren't sharing your hill to die on. You aren't saying anything that could be disagreed with. You're playing it safe so you don't ruffle any feathers. This makes your content nice, but nice isn't magnetic. Okay? People don't hire coaches for nice information. They hire coaches for their perspective and for their leadership. So if you don't have a clear point of view, you aren't being a leader. You're being a curator. And your clients want to know what you believe in. what you stand against, and why your way is the way that works. They're looking for someone to believe in because they've lost belief in their own ability to solve the problem. So lean into your unpopular opinions. What's something the rest of your industry says that you completely disagree with? Like, what's a truth in your niche that you think is actually a lie? These are the anchors of your brand. How to do this is by identifying your core beliefs. Like me as a business coach, I think hustle culture is a scam. That whole 5 a.m. wake up call, that is actually killing your business growth. So, like, what's your version of that? Say it and say it loudly. Like, when you take a stand, you create a polarization effect. The wrong people will leave, but the right people will become your fiercest fans. They'll hire you because they finally found someone who sees the world that they do. So notice that none of these six problems are really content problems. They're alignment problems. They're what happens when your message, your energy, and your strategy stop working together. And that's exactly what we help coaches untangle. So building a business that feels like an expression of who you are shouldn't feel like an uphill battle. So if you're tired of trying to force yourself into generic formulas that leave you feeling invisible and exhausted, let's change the approach. On a clarity call, we'll look at you and your business goals to find the path for you that actually feels like a relief. Click the link in the description to book that call today.